Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into the history of the Colombo crime family in New York City.
Yeah, one of the famous five families. A really complex story.
It really is. We're looking at their origins, those intense internal wars they had, and sort of where things stand now. We've got some detailed sources to draw from.
Right. And the goal here really is to pull out the key moments, the big shifts, understand how this organization got from A to B without getting totally bogged down in every single detail.
Exactly. Find those pivotal events and maybe some surprising facts along the way. Okay, so let's jump right in. The starting point seems to be 1928, right? Joseph Profaci.
That's the guy. He came over from Sicily back in 21. And interestingly, he became a pretty well-known olive oil importer.
Ah, yeah, the classic setup, isn't it? Legitimate business on the surface.
Pretty much. But yeah, his first real gang activities, rooted in bootlegging, kicked off around 1928.
And the landscape back then in Brooklyn, pretty crowded, huh? You had Frankie Yale, Masseria, Shiro, Tequila.
Oh yeah, it was volatile. Lots of competition. Profaci's initial crew wasn't huge, so they were kind of navigating all that.
Now, here's a key moment. 1928, Frankie Yale gets taken out. By Capone's guys, wasn't it?
That's the story. Apparently a dispute over the Union Siciliana, Yale's death created a power vacuum, a real opportunity.
And Profaci and his brother-in-law, Joseph Magliocco, they jumped on that.
They did. Managed to carve out territory in Brooklyn, places like Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Red Hook, Carroll Gardens. It really shows how one hit can just reshape everything.
It's amazing how quickly things can shift.
And it wasn't just random grabs. After Salvatore Tequila was also killed, later in 28, there's actually a meeting in Cleveland.
In Cleveland? Why there?
Neutral ground, supposedly. To divide up Tequila's territory, try and stop an all-out war. Profaci got a piece of the pie there, with Magliocco formally as his number two.
So even back then, trying to impose some kind of order amidst the chaos?
Sort of, yeah. Then you get the Castellamarese War in the early 30s. Big conflict.
And Profaci, what was his play?
Well, officially, he stayed neutral. But the sources suggest he was secretly backing Salvatore Maranzano against Joe Masseria. Probably a calculated move.
Playing both sides, maybe?
Or just hedging his bets, waiting to see who came out on top. The war ended, famously, with Luciano betraying Masseria and then Maranzano too.
Which led to the commission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
1931.
Yeah.
The five-family structure gets cemented, trying to prevent those massive wars. And Profaci is officially recognized as the boss of his family, Magliocco as underboss.
And Profaci builds this image, right? The olive oil and tomato paste king of America. Sounds almost respectable.
Yeah, he had the legitimate businesses, the wealth. But trouble was brewing internally. A big issue was this $25 monthly tribute he demanded from every member.
25 bucks? Doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess it adds up, and it's the principle.
It was definitely the principle, especially for guys like Capo Frankie Schatz, Abba Marco. He had this huge policy game, apparently bringing in millions a year.
Wow, millions. Okay, yeah, he wouldn't like paying tribute on that.
Not at all. And he had support the Gallo brothers, Larry, Albert, and Joe, and even a young Carmine Persico and his crew, the Garfield boys. Abate Marco refused to pay.
And Profaci wasn't having that, I imagine?
Nope. In 1959, Profaci allegedly ordered the hit on Abate Marco. Joseph Gielli carried it out.
Okay, so problem solved.
Not quite. The fallout was huge. Profaci demanded Abate Marco's son, Anthony, be turned over by the gallows. They refused. Plus, Profaci denied the gallows the policy game rackets.
Ah, and that lit the fuse.
That was it. The first Colombo family war kicks off right there around 1960.
So it's the gallows versus Profaci and his loyalists.
Right. Larry, Albert, and Joe Gallo leading the revolt. Things got really intense.
How intense?
Well, in 1961, the gallows actually kidnapped some of Profaci's top guys. Underboss Magliocco, Profaci's own brother Frank, a capo named Musacchia, and a soldier, Simone.
Kidnap the underboss. That's incredibly bold. What did Profaci do?
He actually fled to Florida, left his consigliere, Charles the Sige Cicero, to negotiate their release.
Wow, so negotiations, but surely there was violence, too.
Oh, absolutely. While Lo Cicero talked, Profaci supposedly ordered hits from Florida. They went after Larry Gallo and a Gallo guy, Joseph Jelly.
Did they succeed?
Gielli was killed. Larry Gallo survived a strangulation attempt, supposedly by Carmine Persico and Salvatore Sally D'Ambrosio.
Is that where Persico got his nickname, the Snake?
That's the story, yeah. The whole war was brutal. Sources say 9 murders, 3 guys disappeared.
Just vanished. Grim stuff. Did things calm down at all?
A bit, yeah, when Joe Gallo went to prison in late '61. But the bad blood was still there. Then Profaci himself died of cancer in June 1962.
So Magliocco takes over officially. Does that end the war?
Not really. He was Profaci's guy, right? The
Mm-hmm.
war just sort of simmered and flared up again. 1963 saw more violence. Persico survived a car bomb.
Another attempt on him. He seemed hard to kill.
Apparently so. Then later, a Gallo hit team shot him multiple times, but he still survived. The family was tearing itself apart.
It sounds like chaos. And then on top of all this internal fighting comes the Bonanno plot in 63.
Yeah, talk about adding fuel to the fire. Joseph Bonanno, head of his own family, decides he wants to assassinate the bosses on the Mafia Commission. Luchese, Gambino, Magaddino, De Simone.
Take over the whole thing. That's ambitious. And he wanted Magliocco's help.
He did. And Magliocco apparently agreed. Maybe because he felt slighted, never got a seat on the commission himself. Plus, he'd always been allied with Bonanno and Profaci.
Okay, so Magliocco agrees. Who does he get to do the job?
This is the big twist. He picks one of his own guys, Joseph Colombo, to handle the hits on Luchese and Gambino.
But Colombo doesn't do it.
Nope. He goes straight to Luchese and Gambino and tells them everything. A massive betrayal of his own boss.
Wow, why would he do that? Loyalty to the commission over his boss? Or just seeing an opportunity?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
It was incredibly risky. The commission figured out Bonanno was the real mastermind. He went into hiding. Magliocco got called in, confessed everything.
What happened to him?
They let him live, but forced him to retire. Slapped him with a $50,000 fine, too. A huge sum back then.
And Colombo, what's his reward for spilling the beans?
He gets the ultimate prize. The commission awards him the family. He renames it the Colombo family, after himself.
Just like that, he becomes the boss.
Yep. At 41, he was the youngest boss in New York. And significantly, the first one born and raised in the U.S., not Sicily. That's a big shift.
A generational change, almost. How did he run things initially?
Smartly, it seems. He put older guys in key spots. Salvatore Charlie Lemons, Mineo as underboss, Benedetto D'Alessandro, then Joseph Joey Iacovelli as consigliere. Probably to steady the ship, reassure the old guard.
And the war with the gallows, did he end that?
He did manage to broker a peace. It helped that Larry Gallo died of cancer in 68, but yeah, Colombo ended that first war.
So a period of peace finally arrives.
Relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Although some sources say the other bosses, especially Carlo Gambino, kind of saw Colombo as their puppet, maybe didn't fully respect his authority.
But Colombo did something pretty unusual for a boss, didn't he? This Civil Rights League.
Yeah, the Italian-American Civil Rights League, founded in April 1970, ostensibly to fight discrimination against Italian Americans.
How did that go down with the other mobsters?
Not well at all. They hated the public attention the spotlight it brought, made things difficult, you know. But Colombo really pushed it, held big rallies.
Was he genuinely concerned about civil rights, or was it more of a power play, a way to gain legitimacy or influence?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Hard to say for sure what his motives were, but it definitely got him noticed, maybe too noticed.
Because then came June 28th, 1971, the rally.
Right. Colombo was shot multiple times by a guy named Jerome A. Johnson. Colombo survives, but he's left paralyzed, basically incapacitated for life.
And Johnson.
Killed almost immediately by Colombo's bodyguards on the scene.
The police officially said Johnson acted alone.
But nobody in the family bought that.
Not really. The finger pointed straight at Joe Gallo. He'd just gotten out of prison earlier that year.
Gallo's back on the scene. Did you want revenge? Or just to take over? Well, Gallo apparently argued the peace deal Colombo made didn't apply to him because he was locked up. Colombo tried to make peace, offered him $1,000.
$1,000? After all that history, that sounds like an insult.
Gallo certainly thought so. He reportedly demanded $100,000. When Colombo refused, well, that was pretty much the start of the Second Colombo War, Colombo, even paralyzed, ordered Gallo killed.
So Colombo's out of commission, practically. Who's running the show?
That was the problem. Underboss Mineo didn't want the job, surprisingly. He suggested the consigliere, Iacovelli.
And Iacovelli, did he go after Gallo right away?
He hesitated at first. There was massive police heat after the Colombo shooting. But eventually, yeah, the pressure mounted.
So they went after Gallo.
By early 72, yes. The hit went down in April 72 at Umberto's Clam House in Little Italy. Famous incident. Gallo was killed.
And that ended the Second War.
Not quite. Albert Gallo, Joe's brother, tried to retaliate, but his crew messed up, ended up killing innocent bystanders, not their intended targets. Terrible tragedy.
Just awful. So much bloodshed. What happened to the leadership then, Iacovelli?
Iacovelli fled, went into hiding. With him gone, and Mineo still not wanting the top spot, it created an opening. Vincenzo Eloy stepped in as acting boss for a bit, but then got jailed for perjury.
Another one down. Who next?
Joseph Joey Brancato took over as acting boss, and he actually managed to negotiate a final peace with what was left of the Gallo crew. They ended up joining the Genovese family.
Okay, so the Gallo threat is finally neutralized, more or less. Who takes permanent control?
By the end of 1973, it becomes clear Carmine the Snake, Persico, even though he's in prison.
He becomes the official boss while incarcerated. How does that work?
He appointed Thomas DiBella as acting boss on the street. His brother, Alphonse Alleyboy Persico, became consigliere, and Tony Schott's, DeMarco Frankie Schott's son, became underboss. So Persico was calling the shots from prison through his chosen guys.
So the Persico era begins. How did things go under DiBella as acting boss? Colombo was still alive, but in a coma, right?
Yeah, Colombo lingered until 78. Under DiBella, things were relatively calm compared to the war years. But sources say the Gambino family started moving in on Colombo rackets. The family was weakened. DiBella retired in 77.
And Persico just keeps running things from jail.
Pretty much. After DiBella, he made his brother Alphonse acting boss. But then Alleyboy skipped bail, so Persico set up a three-man ruling panel for a while. Didn't last long.
Seems unstable.
It was. Then, in 1988, Persico dissolved the panel and appointed Victor Arena as temporary acting boss. Gave him quite a bit of authority, unusually so.
Temporary. That sounds like it's asking for trouble.
And trouble is what they got. Around the same time, Persico himself got caught up in the big Mafia commission trial from 85 to 87.
Right, that was huge. Took down the heads of several families.
Exactly. Persico was convicted, along with his underboss Langella and others. He got a 100-year sentence, effectively a life sentence. Some analysts noted this was devastating for the Colombos because Persico was still relatively young and seen as capable even from prison.
So Persico is locked away for good, basically. And he's got Arena running things temporarily.
But Arena starts getting ideas. By the early 90s, he thinks Persico is out of touch behind bars, making bad decisions. Arena starts wanting the top job for himself, permanently.
Did he try to make a move?
He did. He went to the commission, asked them to recognize him as the official boss, but they turned him down. They stuck with Persico.
So Arena's stuck. What does he do?
He asked his consigliere, Carmine Sessa, to secretly poll the capos, see who they'd back. But Sessa was loyal to Persico.
Oh boy, Sessa told Persico.
You bet. Persico saw it as treason. He ordered a hit on Arena.
And that kicks off another war.
The Third Colombo War, 1991. Arena actually survived the first attempt on his life.
He survived, like Persico used to.
Seems like a pattern, doesn't it? The family split right down the middle. Persico loyalists versus the Arena faction. It got incredibly ugly. Lasted about 2 years.
How bad was it?
Really bad. 12 people killed, another 18 just disappeared, presumed murdered. Guys like William Willie Boy, Arena, Vic's son, were known for being violent. On the Persico side, you had Gregory Scarpa Sr., a notorious killer.
Scarpa? Wasn't he later revealed to be an FBI informant?
That's a whole other complicated story, but yes. He was playing a very dangerous game. Anyway, the war dragged on until Arena was finally convicted in 1992.
What did he get?
3 life sentences. Game over for him. But the war devastated the family. 58 members and associates ended up in prison because of it.
58. That's a massive hit.
Huge. The commission was furious about the bloodshed and the attention it drew. They refused to give the Colombos a seat on the commission for a while, even talked about dissolving the family entirely.
Wow, so they barely survived that third war. Who took over after Arena went down?
Persico's son, Alphonse Little Alleyboy Persico, was released from prison around 94 and became acting boss. He then appointed Andrew Russo as acting boss when he had to step aside briefly, but took over again himself in 96 when Russo went to prison.
It just seems like a revolving door of acting bosses, mostly linked to the Persicos.
That's pretty much it. And the family was severely weakened, down to maybe 75 made members, some estimates say. Persico's determination to rule from prison almost destroyed them.
Did Alleyboy last long in charge?
Not really. He was arrested in 99 on gun charges. Then, while in prison, he was accused of ordering the murder of his own underboss, William Wild Bill Cololo, back in 99.
Murdering his underboss? Why?
Vercuto's gonna try and take over, most likely. Cacholo disappeared. Alleyboy was eventually convicted for that murder conspiracy and got a life sentence in 2009.
Another Persico locked up for life. Who's running things on the street then?
More acting and street bosses. Tomashat's Gieli for a time. Then Ralph F. DeLeo, who was actually based up in Boston, interestingly enough.
Boston? That seems far afield.
Yeah, it shows how things were maybe getting stretched thin. Then Andrew Andy Mush, Russo came back into the picture. He'd been acting boss before, took control again multiple times.
Russo, he eventually became the official boss.
Yes, after Carmine Persico finally died in prison in March 2019. Russo officially took the title. But then he died in prison himself in 2022.
It just seems like prison sentences and death are the main way leadership changes hands. What about law enforcement pressure during all this?
Oh, they never really let up. The 2010s, early 2020s saw continued indictments. They went after the administration, capos, soldiers, racketeering, extortion, loan sharking, the usual stuff. And they got more informants, like Richard Ferrara. Each conviction weakened them further.
So Carmine Persico dies in 2019, still officially the boss. Russo takes over, dies in 2022. Where does that leave them now?
Well, as of our latest info, the acting boss is believed to be Little Robert D'Onofrio. But there's speculation that Theodore and Skinny Teddy Persico Jr., another Persico, might be in line to take over when he gets out of prison later this year, December 2025.
Skinny Teddy Persico, another one. Who are the other key players?
The current underboss is reportedly Joe Waverly Case, and the consigliere is Big Ralphie DiMatteo, though he's due for release in early 2026. So, still some familiar older names around.
And the arrests keep coming.
Seems so. Just this February 2025, Joseph Orpalo and his son Frank were picked up on gun charges. It shows law enforcement is still actively targeting them.
It's no wonder they were being called the weakest of the five families back in 2011. Has that reputation stuck?
Largely, yes. Decades of internal wars and relentless prosecutions have taken a massive toll.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. It's a history just filled with turmoil, isn't it? These incredibly destructive internal wars, one after another.
Absolutely. Power struggles seemed constant. And then you have the massive influence of Carmine Persico ruling for decades from a prison cell, which itself caused more conflict.
Yeah, his shadow looms large over so much of this story. Despite moments where things seem stable, they were constantly battling law enforcement and, maybe more damagingly, battling themselves.
Which leads to their current state significantly diminished, fractured.
Right. So here's something to think about for you listening. We've seen this family go through unbelievable upheaval for decades, yet somehow endure. What does their current weakened, fractured situation really tell us about the future of organized crime in a place like New York?
That's the question. Are these just cycles, violence, decline, maybe rebuilding? Or are we seeing something more permanent, a real fading of influence, at least for the Colombos? Their story is, well, it's unsettling, but it's definitely a fascinating look at how these groups rise and fall and the forces, internal and external, that shape their destiny.